Hey, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the thumbnail. So you're obviously a little bit curious about this little WEN belt sander here. So if you want a very detailed setup and everything I did to get this as accurate as I possibly could, go ahead and keep on watching this video in its entirety. If you're curious what I think about this after a year and whether or not it was worth my time and money, go ahead and click to the end right there. And as always, thanks for watching, and please hit that like and subscribe button.
All right, we'll get right into it. This is a review of the WEN belt sander, 1 inch by 30 inch with the 5-inch sanding disc. Get all these specs out of the way for those that care. Obviously, this is the model 6515T. Motor's rocking 120 volts, so just your standard household outlet. 60 hertz, 2.3 amps for those that care for all those details. Your belt speed is going to be 3,160 feet per minute. All your belt speeds are typically measured in feet per minute. And then your disc, which is on a axis for rotary stuff, is 3,450 revolutions per minute. Obviously the machine was manufactured in 6/21. Ordered this on February 7th, 2022. Arrived on Valentine's Day, yay for me, February 14th, 2022. So rolling out, here's everything it came with. Obviously it comes with a little Allen wrench to help put the thing together. Got this cute little groovy miter gauge that comes with it. Good and bad, all these tools typically are just put together really quick at the manufacturer. They know a lot of people want them just out of the box ready to go, and typically you can plug and play these things. But if you really put in about 30 minutes or so and do some things to them, kind of tune them up a little bit, it makes the long run usage a whole lot nicer. Off the get-go, your table here has got some really sharp edges as you're moving work around. That's one of the last things you want to be catching work as you're trying to sand. So I'll take a file here, kind of go around the edges and kind of bevel them. It's interesting, this one here has no bevel, but if you look closely down here, you'll see that this table actually does have a bevel going all the way around it. One of the things I noticed right off the get-go, which this is already frustrating. You know what? Let's build a tool.
Okay, so we'll get back into this. We'll go ahead and start on this side of the machine. We'll work our way across, see if I can get everything covered that I already discovered. Comes with a little miter gauge. You saw in the unboxing this screw here that is able to set your needle for the 0 degrees or 90 degrees as it pertains to the disc right here. That screw is actually protruding out the bottom. So as you would go to slide, it would actually catch on the back of the table. Good thing we just bought a sander, because we were able to just sand that right off and everything's just fine. Obviously you're gonna be probably coming this way when you're doing it. So we'll get into how to set that a little bit later. Something WEN did right, it's really rare that you get a machine like this and things are actually set at 0. Again, these machines, people think that they're gonna be just super awesome as soon as they come out of the box, but you really need to kind of dial them in. One of the things is setting your 90 degrees, which, again, to WEN's credit, when I set it, it's actually accurate down here where they have the sticker on the bottom. So you set it 90 degrees here, so it's actually a 0 degree tilt. So down here it actually reads 0 and it was right in line. So good for them for doing that one. Came out just right. So moving over here, a little bit frustrating is the dust port collection as it relates to the adjustment knob. You got one on each side so you can control your tilt. WEN does provide you with this adapter right here that you're able to go on the interior of your dust port collection. The problem is, for me, is I usually use this adapter. I have a 2.5-inch dust collection system. A lot of people are using the 2-inch shop backs, or maybe some that are using the 1-inch stuff. Obviously WEN's not gonna know what kind of dust collection system you have, but it would be nice if you were able to actually put this on the exterior, such as over here. So that would be more convenient for me, but again, I can't hold that against the company. But it does make it a little bit difficult to get in here and adjust this. It would have been nice if they were to either move this knob back, considering your pivot point is up top, or move this port out just a little bit so that you would actually be able to get a dust collection on there. As it is, I had to go buy a extension tube for a 2-inch shop vac that allowed me to slide this over the top, able to go in there, and then for my system, I'm able to attach a hose over the top of this. So easily solved, just a little extra purchase that I had to go make, but you know what, we're done. So it's good to go there. So this side's pretty self-explanatory. Just a rotary disc sander, there you go. So moving over here, sharp edges. The top here's a little bit rough compared to this one. We'll fix that up. We'll put it on a flat surface with a little bit of high grit sandpaper and smooth it out. There is, I can't really see it on the video, tiny little bit of pitting, not that critical. Something that was really neat that I missed in the unboxing is on the back of this, as we set it for 90 degrees, there's actually a set screw bolt with a nut right here. And once you set it, you can adjust this down. So as you are adjusting things, maybe you tilt the table so that you can do a project and you want to be able to go back to 90 degrees really, really quick. If you set this as the depth, when you go back, boom, you're right at 90 degrees. You've got to snug it up and you're back in business. So kind of a cool little feature there. Not too bad. This whole assembly here, it's very, very hard to tell in the video, but is actually loose. You're able to move, and you can see the gap right here getting bigger and smaller as you wiggle these back and forth. So we're gonna pull this whole side off and get in there. There's a drive pulley right here that sits a little bit smaller in diameter, and we'll get into there and adjust that and get it all dialed in. I did notice this right here is barely on here. This only captures half a turn of threads. So you can see when I go to loosen it here, it very quickly comes off. So it's literally only half a turn of thread. So that bolt really needs to be a little bit longer. I'm expecting this to vibrate loose as I start using this, but not a big deal in the sense that I've got lots of bolts around the shop, so we can make something work there. So the other thing I would add is it's nice, they give you a tool. This allows you to do several adjustments. Obviously you've got the one here when you're installing it. That plate, if you wanted to remove it or adjust it, that's what that's used for, as well as in here. So lots of times it'd be nice if there was just a little spot, little tray, something where you can just keep the tool, because you end up with a drawer full of random stuff. You're gonna end up, this is gonna be in that drawer, this is gonna be in the drawer, and eventually you're wondering what tool did those go to. So if they actually had a little place to hold these things in the back, somewhere on the side, it'd be a nice additional feature. But again, keeping it in the price range and the price point where this is set at, I think $84 or $85 is what I paid. You're getting what you pay for, and you're gonna get your money's worth, I think, out of this, especially after we get it all dialed in. So anyhow, those were the big things that we noticed. So we'll get in here, we'll pull this off. Obviously we'll have to do some work over here, getting this sanded up. We're gonna tighten it up and see if we can't get it a little bit more dialed in. All right, so on this unit, in order to remove the cover here, it's just gonna be 3 screws. Thankfully, you don't have to pull them all the way out. You can just loosen them up. You've got one here, one up underneath the tray. And then you've got another one right here off the top. Once they're all loosened up, again, this, just that half turn, and boom, it just falls right out. So not too thrilled about that. Comes off, this slides up, and boom, we're out. Okay, so this is that drive wheel I was telling you about. It a little bit smaller, that slows down our revolutions per minute. In order to remove the belt, this is all spring loaded, and really all you gotta do is pull this forward. It's gonna release tension, and the belt comes right off. You put it back on, always pay attention. We've got arrows here on top of the machine indicating which direction the belt travels, and most of your belts also have arrows indicating which direction the belt should travel. So first thing we're gonna do is try to fix this problem of this whole assembly being a little bit loose. We're gonna take off this drive pulley. This is gonna be a reverse threaded screw. So for once, turning to the right is actually going to loosen things. Hopefully this doesn't come off too difficult. There we go. All right, pops right off. So we'll tape this up here. So we've got 3 screws here, looks like, that we're just gonna go ahead and see how loose they are. So not very loose, but loose enough. Oh, that one a little bit looser. And And that one wasn't even snug. Hopefully those won't loosen up as time goes on. Much better though. There's no gap here as I'm able to wiggle this back and forth. So hopefully that solved our problem. That was an easy one. So really not much to explain here. We do have a little bit of rust right here. Shouldn't really affect anything. Bearing doesn't feel like it's gummed up or anything, but that's a bummer. Obviously got a little bit of moisture in there. We'll go ahead and get this back on. Most of your shafts coming off of motor will have a flat side or a set screw that you're able to put things on and lock it into place. That way that doesn't spin inside of this. So this has actually got a flat bevel there. So we'll make sure we line it up and get things put back on. There it goes. All right. Get our screw put back on. Again, we are reverse threaded on this. So to the left is going to tighten it. Awesome. All right, we'll go ahead and get our belt put back on. Again, paying attention to the direction of the arrows there. Things are just going to slide into place here. Get everything tightened back up. I am not left-handed. It would make this a lot easier for the sake of filming. Again, bummer on this. Easy fix, just to have a little bit longer bolt. It's already tight. So that's it. We'll go ahead and pull this off here and get ready to do a little bit of work on this. So we're gonna sand the edge with a little file, and then we'll go ahead and place this whole thing down flat on the surface and kind of smooth it out just a little bit more. So our little tool here. And this is a little shoulder bolt with a spring on it, so we want to make sure that we don't lose that. It sits inside here, and that's what allows you to adjust your table up there. Well, we'll just use this. You have a little leverage there, loosen it up. So this comes out. So there's that screw that I was referring to earlier, a little set bolt that you can adjust. It's got a little nut on it, so we can adjust the height. And then we'll go ahead and take a bevel to that and smooth that out right there. So in order to sand this, just want to make sure that we've got a clean surface here. Something I've seen done before, works out really, really well. We're going to use some sandpaper and a little bit of spray adhesive. And that way it ensures that we'll have a nice, clean, flat area to work with. So the table's pretty smooth, so we're going to start off with some 220 grit. And we're just going to glue it down and kind of keep it from slipping. So we want to make sure that that screw is recessed below the surface of the table, which it is. And so we're just gonna all right, much nicer. Didn't take much, wasn't in bad shape. You can definitely feel a difference. It really starts to show, and I'm not sure if you can see a reflection on there. You do have some high spots and low spots, but this machine isn't a super precise machine. All right, I think we're gonna call that good. I'm gonna go grab a little file and we'll start working on these edges here. All right, so we got here basically an 8-inch bastard file, just kind of like a fine tooth. And we're just gonna lightly go around the edges here and try to take off some of this sharp lip. We'll give ourselves a starting point right here at the line. And it's not gonna take much. This is an aluminum tabletop, which is really soft metal. Okay, so you can see, didn't take much, and just kind of deburred the edges there. We're gonna go ahead and run the file on the inside of the little slot here, do basically the same exact thing. All right, you can see, almost done here. So it just takes that edge off just enough. We'll see if we can get in here, maybe use a little piece of sandpaper I'll get and kind of fold it up and kind of go in there. And all we're gonna do is take a piece of sandpaper, rough edge here, and try to hit this side. Do this side first and then this other side. We're feeling pretty good, and we'll go ahead and work this other edge here. Obviously, a lot of people won't even take the time to bother with this. But if you're like me, it's really frustrating when you get into a project and you keep getting hung up, or there's some small thing about the tool you're using that just, you're constantly always fighting. And after years of doing that, I've just come to the point where, you know what, we're just gonna fix it when we get it and make it set up right. Then we'll go ahead and get the machine back over here and start putting this back together. All right, let's go ahead and get our table put back on. Before we do, we'll look at a couple things underneath here. It's kind of hard to see when you've got black paint on black paint, but this is a backing plate, so as you're pressing material up, it has something to provide resistance, so you can go ahead and sand whatever material you're doing there. So you've got a couple adjustments. There's two bolts there, so you have the ability to kind of twist and slide this back and forth. It's a bummer you can't really go side to side. Sometimes I've noticed when you center the belt, sometimes you get off a little bit, and so when you're pressing on a piece of material, it's only backing it up, and maybe there's a 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch hanging off the side. But as you're pressing, it's not really sanding. So it's just something you gotta be aware of. Again, not a deal breaker, and it all depends on what kind of projects you're working on. When we put the table on, again, black paint on black paint, this is where our release lever is gonna go. So this is gonna go in there, just like that, and hold that table in place. You'll see that there's teeth here, and the way that this spring-loaded shoulder bolt works is you're able to press this in, and it engages the teeth, and that's what allows you to loosen it. You can pull it out, rotate it down, get a better grip, and go ahead and tighten or loosen whatever direction you need to go there. So we'll go ahead and get this put back together. The other thing to mention, we're going to adjust this also. So this is the beloved 10mm wrench here. So we'll go ahead and loosen it up a little bit before we put it back on there. That way we can go ahead and adjust it and set it all to 90 degrees. So first we're going to put our washer on. All kind of self-explanatory. Make sure our spring goes on our shoulder bolt, and then the shoulder bolt into the back of the lever here. Being a shoulder bolt, we're going to go ahead and take this all the way down until it stops on us, and just give it a little snug. Not really going to get any tighter. So now the way the spring works, again, pull it out, go down, grab another bite, lift up, tighten it, pull it out, readjust. I can go down with it to loosen it. So we're gonna go ahead and square this to 90 degrees at first. That way we can adjust this here in the back. So if you don't already have a set, I'd suggest getting yourself a set of squares, different sizes. That way you can go ahead and set up tools the way that you really feel that they should be set up. Obviously this one's too big, didn't realize that, so we'll grab ourselves a little smaller one here. That way we can get right up on there. So already I can tell this set screw here is going to need to come up. So we're going to loosen the nut down and give us some space that we can screw the bolt further up. There we go. So we're slowly going to drive this bolt down until we get to 90 degrees where everything is flush. And we are there. So now, I'm holding this down. Now we need to set this backing nut against it to hold it into place. Double checking our work and we're looking pretty good. All right. So now that we can say our table is square, so anytime that we want to adjust it, put it wherever we might feel we need it for a piece of work, loosen it back up, and now we know when that bolt hits, we're gonna be right at 90 degrees. Again, don't know what kind of work you're doing, but that's the way you go ahead and set that to 90. So this whole side of the machine's looking pretty good. We'll switch back over to here. One of the other things earlier, when I said this is how we'd go ahead and set it to 90. Thankfully, the gauge was good down here. Everything's set. You just loosen your knobs, put it where you need to be. There was no stop on this one that would just go back to default. However, that gauge there, just eyeballing it at 0, seems to work pretty well. So finally, what we'll address, kind of go over, is this miter gauge. Again, I don't plan on using this with any of my work. It's going to be kind of hard to see here. You've got a gauge over here. 0 degrees on here is going to represent being perpendicular or 90 degrees to your belt, just like that. Okay. This little screw here allows you to adjust that needle. So when you first set up your machine, go ahead and square it. You're going to throw this on here. You've got this adjustment knob that allows you to rotate your bevel. Throw it on there. Go ahead and snug it up. So now you know you're at 90 degrees or perpendicular to the belt, or the disc, sorry. And then you're just going to take a Phillips screwdriver and you're then going to loosen that up and adjust it to 0 and tighten it back down. And then in the future, after you adjust this, do your project, do your work, you want it to go back to being perpendicular, you just go right back to 0. Of note, when you talk about your disc sanders, just realize your RPMs. You're going to get more material passing per revolution on the outside of your belt, and again, on the outside of your disc versus the inside of your disc, right? So if you were to take the circumference on the outer edge, obviously it's going to be a lot larger than if you were to take a circumference measurement in the middle here. So just realize if you're really trying to hog some material away, you may want to be sanding out here on the outside, a little bit more precise, moving it a little bit slower depending on how hard you're pushing in, a little bit on the inside. So I'd suggest if you're sanding something down, remember you're removing material, so it's going to shorten whatever your measurement is. You may want to put yourself a line and you're going to sand to that line. Again, most people that are buying these probably have a pretty good idea of what they're doing and don't need to hear anything from me. You also want to try to sand on this half of the disc. As you have this forward rotation, it's pushing your material against this table. If you were to hold your material over here on this side, it's essentially lifting up and you have to try to hold your material down. So you're constantly fighting it and you're going to be shooting dust up in your face. So keep your material on this half of the table, and that way your dust is actually going down and hopefully out of your dust collector, and it's pressing your material against the table and holding it in place and stabilizing it better. So there you have it. That is going to be your WEN 1" by 30" belt sander with your 5" sanding disc on the side. Good luck. All right, one way or another, you made it to this part of the video. The review, 12 months later. A whole year I held on to that footage that you just watched, just so I could give you this one final, complete, all-inclusive review as to whether or not this thing was worth it, if it's held up, and would I buy it again? So after a year, really quickly, I'd say, yeah, I would. I spent 84 bucks on this. Have I gotten $84 worth of use out of it in 12 months? Absolutely. Now, do they make better machines out there? Yeah, probably. I've owned better machines that have lasted a really long time. But when I bought this, I just needed something really quick. Amazon takes care of that because they get it here really quick. And 84 bucks, it's like, cool, let's just do it. We'll get it, right? I would prefer something with a little bit more powerful motor, but that's just me. 12 months, how much use have I actually got out of it? I'd say on average, I use this thing probably about 6 times a month. Now, mind you, sometimes you're only coming out here and you're flipping the switch and you're only using it for a couple minutes. Maybe you got to deburr something really quick. Who knows? Other times I've come out here and I've spent all day with this machine on, working on wooden handles or who knows what. Also, for about 3 weeks, I actually let a buddy of mine borrow this. He does woodworking. He's got this really cool big old shop. And he's got a lot of floor model tools. He has a huge belt sander. But he was making a dollhouse for his granddaughter and he needed something really small. So he took this for about 3 weeks and it's held up perfectly fine. Now I find I don't really use this disc sander that much, but if you see any of my other videos, I also have a little bit bigger one, also made by WEN. And to get it out in the open, no, I don't get any money from WEN. They did not send me these products. I purchased these on my own because they are what fit the bill for me at the time. So when it comes to the disc sander, I use the other one that I have. So 99% of the time, I'm using this little 1" side, and it works out great. So if you watch the previous video, or the first half of this video, I was worried about this little knob right here and whether or not it would fall off. After 12 months, it hasn't fallen off once. The belts are easy enough to change on this, just like all these models. There's plenty of them out there. Delta makes one, I think Craftsman make one, Rikon I think is another brand out there. There's a whole bunch. And so they're all more or less the same. It wouldn't surprise me if it's one company that makes all of them. Who knows? But anyhow, after a year, yeah, I'd buy it again.